Hello and welcome to the spoiler review for Dexter New Blood, episode 9, titled The Family Business. I'm your host, Jacob Bartley, and this is Talking Dex, coming to you from the Bartley and Barnes YouTube channel. How is everybody doing? Oh my goodness. I can only imagine if you're like myself and you're a big Dexter fan and you watch this episode that you may be geeking out just as much as I am. There might be those few fans that who did not want to see this coming. But as a Dexter fan, I'm not saying this is the only thing that would have satisfied me, but this is kind of what I was hoping for when we knew that Harrison was going to be a big part of this season. And we got Dexter training his son in the way of the code and teaching him how to not get caught and how to channel his inner urges, his dark passenger. We're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into full spoiler territory if you did not know. But I mean, if you clicked on this video, then I hope you would know this is a spoiler discussion because I already spoiled stuff from the start of this show. There is a lot of stuff to talk about. There is a lot. And I'll tell you right off the bat, there's been some great episodes this season. This is by far my favorite episode. And I think before this point, it was episode 6. Was episode 6 the one? Yes, episode 6, Too Many Tuna Sandwiches, was my favorite episode before this one. The reason why I liked episode 6 so much, there's a ton of reasons, but the moment when Dexter saves Molly and confronts Kurt at his cabin and kind of saves Molly, that felt so old school Dexter to me. And I'm not saying that I want everything about this New Blood series to feel old school Dexter, but I want elements of it and sprinkles of it here. And a lot of it hasn't felt like that, in my opinion. So I loved episode 6, my favorite one, until episode 9, The Family Business. Absolutely incredible episode, in my opinion. I'll listen to other arguments, and I respect everyone's opinion, but this is an excellent episode. And starting off from the beginning all the way till the end, one thing I do want to address: last week's episode, I'm gonna call this the ketamine crisis, or whatever you want to call it. Everybody's freaking out about the ketamine thing and how we know Dexter used ketamine in this new season, Dexter New Blood, to tranquilize the drug dealer and then the drug supplier, and he used it on Kurt in this episode, right? So we know Dexter's been using it here, but a lot of people complained when Angela Googled Miami homicide and typed in ketamine that the Bay Harbor Butcher came up. And I'm going to have to go back and look, but some people said that in the first couple sentences of when you Google something, they show you a couple sentences in an article or whatever that are related to your search. And I got to go back and look, but some people said that it said specifically in those articles that the Bay Harbor Butcher used ketamine. And I got to go back and check. But if that's the case, then my arguments aren't valid, because then it's like, okay, they're saying he used a completely different substance. As far as I know, and I'll say this, everybody is complaining about that, but I want to make sure, if you're complaining about it, make sure you're doing your research. I didn't have a problem with it because I'm like, okay, I trust the writers of the show to not be stupid, and there's a reason for it, right? So one reason could be, if you search an article, and if you type in something and you type in a keyword for an article, anything that contains that word could come up. So there could be something in the article that says the Bay Harbor Butcher used M99 to tranquilize his victims. similar things that have been used. It's very similar to ketamine, this, and this. The article could have simply said that. And that way, it's a Bay Harbor Butcher article with the word ketamine in it. There's ways around it. If not, the writers, like, they know what they're doing. There has to be a reason for it. And I'm just holding out hope that they did not address it in this episode, even though we had ketamine uh, play a part in this episode. It wasn't the whole M99 versus ketamine debacle wasn't solved in this episode. Maybe it'll be solved in episode 10. But I think everybody should just take a chill pill and just see what the show presents to us. Once the season's done, then we can revisit it and say, okay, that was stupid that they never addressed that. And I'll agree with everybody, honestly, because if they just never address it, then that's stupid. And I bet you there's somebody way smarter than all of us out there who's like, who can tell us, oh, actually, M99 and ketamine, they're mistaken for each other quite often. That could be the case too. Maybe in an autopsy, they're mistaken for each other because they do a similar thing. Maybe that's what happened. Who knows? Either way, it's an important detail, but it's not going to ruin the show for me. Just like when they use the infrared cameras to check out the Matt crime scene, and then Dexter goes back the next couple days and is going through the infrared cameras, obviously knowing they're there with the jacket to leave Matt's scent. That's a problem, but if they never address it, okay, that's one tiny flaw in the show. It doesn't ruin the whole season for me. Anyways, let's get into the family business. And oh my goodness, when this episode first started, I was like, wait a minute, is this a flashback? Is this Miami Dexter? And it was. And look, I think what they did with this was very artistic. I'd never seen anything like it, really. Not that I can think of off the top of my head, where a character is telling someone a story, but they're in telling the story, they're kind of transforming themselves mentally back in the past and showing it to us as the viewer. And you could say, "Oh, Dexter obviously looks older in this shot," but is it his older self going back to that moment in time to tell the Mr. Wiggles story? And he's looking at the camera. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking. He's talking to Deb while he's there. So I think in a way it was his current self mentally time traveling back to that moment to tell the story of Mr. Wiggles as an example to Harrison of how the code works. And just to get that little bit of Miami feel, that little bit of I don't know how to do it, but you know what I'm talking about. The little music with the ice truck killer. And look, that little score is primarily in season 1 of Dexter with the ice truck killer. And I thought it was the ice truck killer's theme, but maybe I'm wrong. And it popped up several times in the show, but it was prominent in season 1. And I loved hearing it here. That's like some of my favorite music in all of Dexter. But yes, that just getting a little taste of the old days was so cool. I loved it, and it made sense narratively. Like, Harrison needed to hear about the code from his dad, and I could understand people say, "Here we go again, getting the code explained and training somebody in the code." I mean, he did it with a handful of people, with Lumen, with uh, the guy in season 8. He did it with a lot of characters, but this is the one that he was meant to teach it to, Harrison. So I had no problem with this, and I had been waiting for Harrison and Dexter to finally start getting along, and this is like too good to be true. They're getting along so well. He's telling him about it, and yeah, that was absolutely just fantastic. And Deb's kind of there in his ear, telling him, "Don't tell him that you kill." And he's like, "Okay, I won't tell him yet." So he just says, "I guaranteed Mr. Wiggles is never gonna hurt anyone ever again." And Mr. Wiggles was terrifying. I, Look, I have a fear of clowns. And look, I can go watch the It movies with Pennywise. I know it's a fictional clown. It's Pennywise is basically like a sorcerer, but this clown felt very real. And it was pretty terrifying, to be honest. I don't care, how innocent you think this guy is, even if he wasn't a kid killer. And I would never take my kid to that little Mr. Wiggles Fantastic Fun Room or whatever. Hell no. Never take him there in the first place. So people are crazy for letting their kids spend time with him. But we saw Dexter take him out, which was cool. Couple other things. Dexter, this one kind of jumps around a bit back and forth to all the different things going on. So I might have to do so in order to talk about them as well. Dexter goes to clean up Elric and he starts chopping up the body parts, which transitions to Angela looking at the Bay Harbor butcher victims on her tablet. And we know last week she was investigating the needle marks on the drug dealer and the drug supplier. So she knows that Dexter had connection to both of these guys. Both of them, one of them dead, had a needle mark in their neck. So nobody has ever in the Dexter history has ever came close to specifically exposing Dexter as the Bay Harbor Butcher. I mean, LaGuardia, right? Look, I mean, I should say nobody. LaGuardia obviously did, right? Came very, very close. A couple characters were on their way to doing it, right? But to me, this is the closest it's ever been because here's the thing. A lot of the time where LaGuardia was close to Dexter, close to catching Dexter, he knew about it and was able to do things to try to prevent her from exposing him, such as framing her and all that. He has no idea that Angela's on his trail. And when I was watching this, I was thinking like Dexter sees Angela multiple times throughout this episode, and she's obviously being very cold to him. She's usually the one to say I love you first. And maybe he's like, "Oh, it's because I lied to her about who I really am and she'll get over it." Maybe it's that. But he has to know that something's up with her right now. Uh I'll tell you what, when I was watching this episode, like a couple minutes in, I just started to feel like, "Oh my," that intensity you feel like in a moment in a show or a movie, we're like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening." And you're just like, "Oh, it's like almost too much to handle." I felt like that for this whole entire episode. Because first of all, we got Dexter training Harrison, the Kurt stuff, Angela right on his trail. It This was beautiful storytelling, and it honestly makes the rest of the season better to me because everything they planted was leading to these moments. So now I think when I go back and rewatch episodes, if I rewatch the season, which I will, it it's going to feel a lot more fluid because I was not too happy with like episodes 2 through 4. Uh, there was good things going on in them, great moments, but it really started picking up 5, 6, and now all the way up to 9. So I'm super stoked about that. But yeah, but Angela, man, the what like she has direct connections to Dexter and the needle marks, and then seeing the needle marks on specifically on the Bay Harbor Butcher victims. Might as well talk about this now. Later on in the episode, she goes to the I think it's the vet or it's like a farm or something. I think it's the vet that everybody goes to for like pet supplies and things like that. So that's where Dexter got his ketamine from, and Angela goes there and finds out that he did indeed buy ketamine. So we know ketamine was in the drug supplier system. Now she knows he checked it out. She found the needle marks. A lot of evidence, right? That's not the last thing. We'll talk about the last thing at the end of the show because it's the last thing that basically happens. One really, really heartwarming moment for me was Harrison getting a Christmas with his father. Harrison has been without his father for 10 years, and Dexter has been alone. He hasn't been able to be his true self for 10 years. And that being, he doesn't get to be the Bay Harbor Butcher or Dexter Morgan. Angela found out a couple days ago or whatever that he's Dexter. So, I mean, his son knows that he's Dexter, but just to see him give his son that moment, that was incredible. That was that was great. Couple socks, t-shirts, classic parent gifts, which I still love getting socks and t-shirts, to be honest. I appreciate socks and t-shirts way more now that I'm an adult than I did when I was a kid. I should have appreciated them more. But he also gets a nice new rifle, which was cool, but it also fit. It's so he can fit in, which was what was part of the code, part of the rules, fitting in. They go out, they shoot the rifle. He gets this bonding moment with his son. It's almost like what that moment with Kurt with the pitching machine was supposed to be, but a real moment with his real father teaching him something. That was honestly amazing. I freaking love that. um, Also very amazing is Harrison gives Dexter a drawing of Deb, which looks really good. Like not perfect because obviously if like he's just a kid who's really good at drawing. He's not a professional drawer, so it was a pretty good damn picture of Deb. And like it's not like Harrison doesn't have a ton of money saved up or anything, so that was a beautiful gesture for Harrison to draw a picture of Deb because I don't even think, even though Dexter sees Deb in his head, I don't think he has any pictures of her. First of all, I don't think he didn't have any way to get some. I mean, he can look her up on the internet, right? So if he ever wanted to see a picture of her, so he can just look her up on the internet. But also, just to get that drawing from Harrison, that was quite beautiful. So they go, they bust out their ugly Christmas sweaters. They go to Angela's house, and knowing that Angela is so close on his trail made this scene so tense for me. You remember the Thanksgiving episode uh, in season 4 with the Trinity Killer? A lot of people consider that the best episode of Dexter, one of the best episodes of Dexter, at least one of the best scenes in Dexter. This is not as good as Thanksgiving scene with the Trinity Killer, but this is right up. This is like really good stuff because them just being there with Angela to me was like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? And then Kurt shows up right after, like in the middle of this. It was insane. The only thing that didn't happen was a fight breaking out right then and there. It was just an intense scene, and that's what I one of the things that I love about Dexter and why I love this show so much. So many times in the original series, they put Dexter up against the greatest odds. And we were like, oh my gosh, how is he going to get out of this? How is he going to find his way out of this? We have no idea. And you feel trapped as a viewer, just like, even though Dexter doesn't know how effed he is. And that there was a lot of that throughout the early seasons of Dexter. And that's part of the viewing experience that I loved. And now I feel that again because how the hell is he going to get out of this with Angela? On top of that, dealing with the Kurt stuff. So yeah, that was really good. Really good scene. One of the best scenes. There were so many good scenes in this episode, but that was arguably the best or one of the best. So after Kurt shows up, Harrison and Dexter are like, "We gotta go." And hold on, something really weird. Look, when Audrey and Harrison first started flirting, and then they had sex and all that, some people were like, "Oh my god, that incest!" No, it's a girl that his dad's dating. They're not even married, and that's not even her real daughter. Also, I mean, it is weird. If Jim and Angela were going to end up getting married, then that would be a problem. Like that would be a problem. But for now, it's not a problem. But it was weird them being so flirty in front of their parents, holding hands, kissing in front of their parents. That was a little weird. But and one other thing, really quick before we move on. During the opening credit scene, it's so goofy when Harrison gets the beanie from the school, like the school beanie, and Dexter goes, "Go Hawks," and then Harrison goes, "Caw." It's so cheesy, but it's part of it's I think it's supposed to be part of the serial killers trying to fit in, uh, like he was why he bought him the gun and the Christmas sweater and all that. So that was pretty funny there. But yes, so Dexter and Harrison go off to investigate Kurt more, and they need to find proof, right? Harrison's like, "Let's do to him what you did to Mr. Wiggles. Find proof." And they take the drone. The drone got into play. Everybody kept saying, "Why did Kurt give Harrison the drone? The drone's never going to show up again." And I was like, who cares if the drone never shows up again? But the drone showed up again, and it had practical use. They got to spy. How little did Kurt know that it was going to be used against him? Long story short, they see a vent. They go check it out. They find Kurt's underground lair. Now, so we had speculated when we saw Kurt in the when we saw Kurt draining the blood of his victims and embalming them, and we're like, okay, he's preserving their bodies somehow, and that was pretty weird. And a lot of people speculated, oh, he's has them displayed somewhere. Also, last week, somebody commented on my video saying that they think that Kurt got Molly, and I was like, "Oh, of course, that I didn't even think about that." Last time we saw her, he was staring at her angrily. She got away, and he probably felt like he needed to finish the job on that one. And when they go down, they see the doll, not the dolls, sorry, but the dead women embalmed and preserved, and we see Molly Park in there, which was that was a crazy moment. Just to see all the women in there was insane, but to see her in there was pretty brutal. So, just because she's been one of the main characters in the show, and I, for a moment there, when Dexter was walking by one of the girls, I thought that we saw the bartender, the school teacher, the Spanish teacher in there. But they would have made sure we saw her and made a bigger deal about it, right? If that was the case. They would have had to. But when you watch it, look on the left of Dexter when he's walking by and Harrison's a little ahead of him. It looked like that actress, but there's so many women in there that it's crazy. But yeah, how terrifying. How terrifying was that? That's one of the craziest, killer rituals from any of the big bads in Dexter. So that was insane. We see Angela listening to the podcast on the Bay Harbor Butcher. Obviously, we heard a little bit of it earlier in the season with Dexter listening, and that um he was like Molly thinks that they didn't find the real Bay Harbor Butcher. It's not James Dokes, that it's somebody that he's still out there. So giving more suspicion to Dexter, towards Dexter for Angela. And then Audrey kind of, because we know Audrey's a fan of it. So she pops up and hints that, why would, like, Molly is basically calling him out. Like, why she's ballsy for putting it out there in public that she's suspicious of the Bay Harbor Butcher, because obviously, like, maybe the Bay Harbor Butcher would go take her out. So now we know Molly's dead and she's missing. Angela tried to call her. Angela's kind of coming to the conclusion that Dexter's the Bay Harbor Butcher. And so she's going to think that Dexter killed Molly. She's going to think that. But I hope Dexter can prove to her that he didn't somehow. I mean, at least take her to Kurt's trophy room. But I was thinking about this. Are they going to find a way to expose Kurt for what he's really doing? Are Dexter and Harrison going to tell Angela, leave a hint so she can find it herself? Or are they just going to leave all those women down there? Because you know how many families will just get a conclusion or get closure on their missing family members. So that was, I was wondering about that. I'm sure they're not just going to leave it alone. Angela has to find out about that so she can see that she was right about Kurt also. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. Yeah, it's so yeah, that was just freaking crazy, man. I'm still like shocked on on Kurt's trophy room. But yes, so to end the episode, basically Kurt burns down Dexter's cabin, and he's waiting for him to come out and aiming the sniper rifle at the doors, and finds out that Dexter and Harrison are at his place going in there. So Kurt obviously is like, shoot, I got to get out of town. He goes home to get all his stuff. Dexter and Harrison are there. They take him and they build a kill room in his trophy room, which was perfect. He had all his victims there. And Dexter's teaching Harrison. Harrison is watching. Harrison stays to watch the kill. He stays to watch the body get butchered up. It was crazy. And I know some people, this might be too much for some people, like a son being taught by his father how to murder and chop up bodies. But like Dexter tells Deb, if Dexter believes that Harrison is just like him, has the same exact feelings and urges, then Dexter feels strongly that he has to teach Harrison the way, the code, and how to do this. And if he waits, he might wait too long before Harrison has a chance to learn this and stop himself from hurting an innocent person or making a mistake, getting caught or something. So even though Dexter desires this so he doesn't have to be alone, I think part of him thinks it's like the practical thing to do. And it's like, okay, prison, death, or this. And he thinks it's this. And they emphasized on, and I love that Dexter was explaining it to him, said he killed in the hundreds, and that they kill bad people and in turn save hundreds of lives doing so. Or even if they save a few more lives that killer might have taken, Harrison says basically, you're a hero and the world is a better place for it. And you look at the smile on Dexter's face, the smiles on Dexter's face when Harrison says those things. He gets so happy about that. So that was amazing. So they head back after killing Kurt. Cabin's burnt down. Angela, Audrey there, and Audrey's like, they got to come stay with us. And this is so crazy, knowing what Angela knows and her having to be like, yeah, sure, they can come stay with us. They go back to the house, and in her mailbox is a letter from Kurt saying Jim Lindsay killed Matt Caldwell. which was like, oh my goodness. So when Dexter sees his cabin burn down, he's like, oh, this is a parting gift from Kurt. Yeah, not the only one. The letter to Angela was the parting gift. Now look, Angela basically already confirmed that he's the Bay Harbor Butcher. Like, what more evidence does she need? On top of that, I don't think she thought, hey, maybe he killed Matt Caldwell. But this is her investigation that has been in charge of since the beginning of the season. And you think she's going to let Dexter make her look like a fool? I'm wondering. Now, look, I watched a little promo afterwards, and I don't want to take too much from that, but they didn't really give much away. So there's not much to speculate on. And I know some people don't watch those, so I won't talk about that. But my pure speculation based on where it could go. I love that they took care of the Kurt situation in episode 9. That way, episode 10 can be all about Angela potentially taking Dexter down. I don't think this is going to be the last season of Dexter. So you're telling me the last time we're ever going to see Dexter and Harrison is all going to be wrapped up in this one episode? It's possible. It's definitely possible. I just don't think so. I think that because at first I thought Angela would confront Dexter before they kill Kurt, and then she would know he would confirm that Kurt is a killer, killed Iris, has all these women, and then she would be like, okay, Dexter, you're the Bay Harbor Butcher. Go do what you do. Take Kurt out. He already took him out. So he doesn't really have that leverage anymore. He can still say, yeah, I'm the Bay Harbor Butcher. But look, I took Kurt out. Like, can you let me forgive me because I took Kurt out? I don't think that's going to fly with Angela. So I have no idea what's going to happen. But I think Angela's going to expose Dexter somehow, try to go after him, maybe call Miami Metro, tell them what's going on, call the FBI, whatever. And Harrison and Dexter are going to flee. I think they're going to flee, go to a new city. Dexter New Blood season 2 is them getting a new identity, living in this new city. That's what I think is going to happen. And that's what I hope happens because it doesn't make sense for them to stay in Iron Lake. There's not a lot of crime other than Kurt and Matt and the drug dealers from Moose Creek or whatever. There's not enough in order to continue this story. You need them out killing bad guys, Dark Passenger, the Code, all that. You can't just have them hanging out, peaceful life in Iron Lake. So I think either some batshit crazy thing's going to happen and it's going to end and it's going to be a clear, definitive ending for Dexter. Maybe he dies. Maybe he's arrested and dies. Maybe something else happens. That doesn't mean they can't continue with Harrison in the future, which I think is a possibility as well. But what I hope happens, because you could do 5 more seasons with Michael C. Hall and Jack Alcott, then kill Dexter, then do 5 more seasons of just Harrison doing his thing, and Dexter as his voice in his head, like Harry was. Maybe that's too much Dexter, but I wouldn't mind. But yeah, bottom line, my prediction is he gets caught. His son is like, I got your back, Dad. Whatever you want to do, I'm game. And they head off together. That's my prediction. And I don't think Dexter would ever kill Angela. I think they're gonna get away, create new identities. I don't think they're gonna go back to Miami. That would be stupid, right? Like they can't. But I think they're gonna purposefully find a city that has a lot of crime. Maybe they go to LA. Maybe they go, I mean, New York's too close. Like Angela would, that's too close to Iron Lake. I mean, New York is in Iron Lake, but I mean, or Iron Lake is in New York State, but New York City is too close. I think they would have to go like Canada. There's no crime in Canada. What am I talking about? I mean, not a lot of crime, but I think they're going to go somewhere like LA, Chicago, something like that. San Francisco, who knows? Uh, but yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. And then they're going to continue doing Dexter stuff in those towns. I don't know. Maybe they end it all. Maybe they end it all. I'm curious. I don't know what's going to happen, but anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of Talking Dex. Spoiler review for Dexter New Blood episode 9, The Family Business. I apologize for the interruption. I had requested some maintenance to be done to my apartment, and the maintenance guy showed up during the stream. Very, very sorry for that, but hopefully it didn't bother anybody too much. If you're watching it, I mean, if you watched it live or you're rewatching it, hopefully you could just skip through that part. So we'll see. But yes, that's going to do it. I'm Jacob Bartley. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Amazing episode for me. I absolutely loved it. And I can't wait to talk Dexter New Blood episode 10. It's going to be insane. Whatever happens, we're going to know what is coming next. I think based on the ending of Dexter New Blood, we're going to be able to tell whether there's going to be a continuation or not. So I'm excited about that because I don't want this to be the last time we see Dexter. And I hope you guys feel the same way. But that's okay if you don't. Let's talk about it in the comment section. All right. Thank you all for listening. I will see you all next time.